over there. Hello and welcome back to Movie Recap Time. Today we are going to be recapping a 2005 disaster movie, titled The Day After Tomorrow. But before we start, if you enjoy our recaps, please subscribe as it helps us enormously. Enjoy! Jack Hall and his colleagues Frank and Jason drilled for ice core samples. Jack went inside with Frank and left Jason outside drilling the samples. The ice shelf began to fall off, which alerted Frank and Jack. They came out to help Jason up as the whole ice shelf falls off. Jack jumped over the ice shelf to pick the samples up. As he jumped back, he fell into the hole now created by the split shelf but was pulled out by his colleagues. Jack then attended a U.S. conference with the policymaker where he told them the whole world was at the risk of climate change which could lead to a global disaster. Vice President Raymond Becker dismissed his concerns and told him the country does not have the capital to finance the changes that need to be made in order to stop this, as they do not believe this will happen anytime soon. After he left the conference, he met Professor Terry, who befriended him because he also had a theory that was just like Jack's theory. That day, it snowed heavily in the U.S. In Tokyo, there was a severe ice storm. Ice was falling off roofs and landing on humans, causing the death of many. At the Weather Forecast Center, the staff realized there was a climate drop at Nomad Buoy 4311. They dismissed the forecast thinking it may be a mistake. Jack's son, Sam, was a first-class student who got an F in mathematics. Jack called his wife Lucy to complain, and his wife asked that he speaks to Sam himself, so she asked Jack to pick Sam up from the airport the next morning. Sam was traveling with two of his colleagues on the school's scholastic decathlon team. They were traveling to New York. Jack picked Sam up. Sam explained to Jack the teacher failed him because he felt he was smarter. Jack told Sam he would call the teacher. At the Weather Forecast Center, a staff member said farewell to his kid and wife as they go visit his mother-in-law. As he entered the back office, he was informed by Professor Terry that another buoy has shown the signs of climate decline. They all knew something was wrong. As per the usual, Jack went on a work trip and he wouldn't be coming back for about a week. His colleague saw a storm ahead and showed Jack. On the plane, Sam is scared of flying, so he was panic eating. His colleague Brian scared him more by telling him about the odds of a place crashing due to turbulence. Their plane entered the storm ahead. The storm shook their plane, but they managed to get to their destination fine. At the competition, another guy from the competing school watched Laura seductively. His name was JD. During recess, JD introduced himself to the crew and asked to take Laura on a tour around the school. Professor Terry called Jack and gave him a report on the climate decline in North Atlantic. They both worked together on the theory. That night, there was several tornado in Los Angeles. The tornado led to the loss of several properties. It was so heavy that it destroyed all the historical properties in U.S. The vice president got the report of this tornado. The whole team was called together. During the meeting, they were briefed that environmental changes happened in other countries too. There was a gigantic hurricane-like superstorm in Canada, Scotland, and Siberia. While some members of the team connects the whole event, some members thought the only thing that can cause an international climate change was the sun, so their theory can never be correct. Jack told them about the oceanic change at North Atlantic. He informed them Professor Terry thinks everything is connected, and it is a result of a new ice age, but the vice president dismissed his opinion again. Later he was given 48 hours to prove his opinion. Janet, a hurricane specialist with NASA, however, believed his theories and asked to work with him. Due to the impact of the tornado on the airplanes, the president had grounded all air traffic and all trips were cancelled. The students in New York for the competition couldn't travel back home. Jack called his son and told him he wasn't safe and they must find a way to get back. He told Jack they needed to get back the next day. JD took the friends to a National History Museum, after which he took them home so they can get shelter. That day, Jack got the result of the weather forecast and they realized the weather change would continue for about 6 to 8 weeks. He asked his boss, Tom, to take him to the vice president again. He asked the vice president to prepare to evacuate the citizens, but he refused, telling Jack he was insane. Professor Terry called to inform Jack about the hurricane-like snow that clouded over Scotland. 3 planes were sent to evacuate the British royal family, but these planes crashed on the way. At JD's house, the friends watched the news, and the Nova Scotia Ocean rose by 25 feet rapidly, thereby causing deep flooding, hence train could no longer move. JD asked to take them to the train station, but that would no longer be possible. JD needed to pick up his younger brother at a boarding school in Philadelphia. The 4 friends left the house, and as they sought to take the elevator, as they were about to take the elevator, the power went out. They then took the stairs down. When they got to the street and saw the cars jammed on the road, the water had risen so high it was almost swallowing cars. Laura asked that they go back inside to safety, but the others refused. They waded through the water on the road hoping to get to the National Library for safety. While they were struggling inside the water, a woman was speaking French. She was stuck inside the car with her child and the water was almost about to swallow the whole car. She was speaking French, so she couldn't communicate with the police. Since Laura understood French, she left her friends to save the woman and her child. The wind-driven storm was about to overflow the whole city. Her friends waited for her. At the hospital, Jack's mother Lucy watched the news about the numerous car accidents in Manhattan due to no electricity. The traffic light wasn't working, and several cars collided. She got scared and ran to her husband's office. After Laura helped the woman out, the woman remembered she had forgotten her passport in the car. Laura went back to pick up her passport. Sam saw the storm coming. He ran to the car to pick up Laura and they all ran into the library. When they got to safety, JD told Sam to confess his feelings for Laura. Jack called Professor Terry back, and he gave him the report of the statistics he sent, told the professor to please find a way to escape from there, but Professor Terry said it was too late. Lucy, Jack's wife, came to meet him at work because she hadn't been able to reach out to their son. Sam also tried to call his parent to no avail. He decided to go down into the water to find a landline. He called his father while he was with his mom. He asked them to call Brian and Laura's parents to let them know they were okay. Jack warned him to stay indoors because the weather would be enough to freeze people in minutes. Jack wanted to go to New York to save his son, but Tom stopped him, asking him to brief the president first. He met with the president and all the policymakers in the country, and told them by the time the storm is done in 10 days, everywhere would be filled with ice and the only solution is to evacuate the people from the south as it was too late for the people in the north. They would have to evacuate to Mexico. After Jack's meeting, the government official deliberates. While Raymond still feels Jack's proposition is hilarious, he was told Jack's son is also in danger. The president commanded that the evacuation should start immediately. At the library where the four friends hid, the water already froze to become ice. They saw some people walking in the snow. Another person informed them the government was evacuating people out of the south. The police officer asked everyone to leave the library and try to escape from the north before it was too late. People started walking out, but Sam told his friends to stay. He told them his father instructed him to stay indoors as the cold would freeze people in minutes. Laura asked him not to keep quiet, so he went to tell the police officer over there. He told them it wasn't safe for them to leave, but no one believed him. He and some set of people stayed behind while the others left. The people in the library burnt books to keep themselves warm while Frank, Jack, and Jason took the car irrespective of all odds to save Sam. Based on Jack's advice, a lot of Americans started flying to Mexico. The Mexican government closed their borders, but the president negotiated on behalf of his citizens to get the border opened. At the hospital, Lucy didn't want to leave the cancer patient Peter she had been working with. She called the ambulance, but they forgot her, so she had to stay at the hospital. At night, Sam told Laura he joined the team because of her and he likes her. That night, they kissed. The president got caught in the storm and also died. The official note was given to Raymond, the vice president. The team traveling to save Sam was walking across the snow when Frank fell inside a block of broken ice into a shopping center. His colleagues tied him with a rope to save him. He saw the ice was breaking and to save his colleagues he had cut the rope, causing him to fall to his death. Laura suffered an infection from her injury. She could go into septic shock and she needed penicillin. Just like Sam had predicted, everyone who went out to the ice had frozen, but Sam needed to get penicillin for Laura. He went with Brian and JD to a nearby hospital where they found the drug. Unfortunately for them, some wolves who had escaped from a zoo was also there. Sam distracted the wolves, they got the penicillin and went back to the library. The space crew saw the ice covering northern Atlanta, just like Jack had predicted. They sent the information to Tom and they examined it. With Jack and Jason passed out in the snow and Jack brought him to safety. Jason woke up to find Jack had dragged him into a kitchen with the burners on. Jack asked that they continued the journey, but Jason opposed this idea as it was not safe. Jack persuaded Jason, so he agreed to this and they set off again. At this point they were 30 miles away from Manhattan where Sam was. That night, Jason asked Jack what was the probability that his son was still alive, but Jack assured him he made a promise to Sam and he would make sure he fulfilled the promise. Jason and Jack were able to get to the library. When Sam saw his dad, he ran over to hug him. Laura also survived. Jack sent words back to his boss Tom, telling him there are survivors. Tom visited President Raymond and informed him of this good news. In return, President Raymond sent a search and rescue team to take the survivors out. President Raymond gave an official address. He admitted he was wrong and that they could not consume all the global national resources without any respect for Mother Nature. He appreciated the third world countries that accommodated them in their time of need. He announced that they were survivors in New York City. As Lucy watched this news inside her emergency ambulance with Peter, she smiled knowing that her husband and son are both safe. The search and rescue plane saw the survivors at the library, and they all entered the plane. Laura rested her head on Sam's shoulder as the movie ended. Thank you for watching the recap. Please remember to subscribe to our channel so you would get notified when we post the next recap. If you enjoyed the movie recap, we will have a link to buy this movie in the description.